Los Angeles, I'm and most Hollywood nights. She goes to California, oh, California.
What you say about Los Angeles?
LA got the people saying.
You're listening to Corner of the Galaxy on cornerofthegalaxy.com. It's time for another episode of Corner of the Galaxy from the Box, the show that gets you behind the scenes of the LA Galaxy and into the minds of soccer reporters and MLS experts. Your hosts for the day are Corner of the Galaxy's Josh Guesman and LA Times soccer reporter Kevin Baxter. Let's start the show.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Corner of the Galaxy from the Box on cornerofthegalaxy.com. I'm your host, Josh Guesman, coming to you on Monday, January 11th. Into 2021 we go. A lot to get to, a lot to talk about. Some Cristian Pavon developments we need to talk about. Julian Araujo and a rumored move to Spurs is there as well. Transfer rumors incoming. Look out. Maybe get ready for some announcements this week. I would, if I was you. And then, of course, we want to get to what's going to happen with the start of this league. Is it going to start on time? Is it not going to start on time? You know, a whole bunch of things are up in the air right now. And to help me do all that is the panda himself, Mr. Kevin Baxter. How's it going, Kev?
Wow, is it you again? Didn't we just talk soccer last week?
It seems,
what could we possibly have to talk about again today?
It seems like it was last year. If we're really and not like today's January 1st and yesterday's December 31st and yesterday was last year. No, it feels like it was months and months and months ago since the last time we actually did this. If I'm being honest,
that's what happens when you have a coup in between shows. By the way, speaking of the change of the years, are you still writing 2020 on your checks?
Checks. That's cute. What are those?
Oh, suddenly I feel older than I did when this show started.
Yeah, I was going to say you should. And to make you feel even just a little bit older, let's just get this out of the way right now.
Welcome to Panda and Pato's Morning Zoo. Pato,
And Panda
in the morning. Panda and Pato in the morning.
All right, good. I'm glad. I liked
back
it.
by popular request.
Yeah, let's see, between, I don't know what made me feel older was the fact that people were like, oh man, what's the new pet? I like the new Pato and Panda thing. And I'm like, wait, that wasn't that long ago that we introduced that. That shouldn't have been, that far out of the realm of consciousness. But the real thing is the intro music, that first intro that we did, I call it the LA intro, I think debuted in 2016, and people are like, I love the new intro music, man. And I'm like, I'm that old. The years just keep ticking by. I don't know what to tell you. I have COVID hair right now. My hair is crazy. I need another haircut. I feel like all the days are slipping away. They're either all the same day, or they're all different days. And my dog is going around pooping throughout the house right now because she doesn't feel well. That's my day. I don't know about how your day is going.
You had a baby awake all night, too.
Oh, yeah, the baby was awake all night, too. And we thought it was because he was sick. He wasn't sick. He's going through what they like to call a sleep regression, Kevin. That's where he forgets how to sleep, which is just tons of fun. That's great. Imagine that.
I know how to solve that.
Yeah, how's that?
Read him some of my stories, and he'll be out like a light.
Oh,
Guaranteed.
Kevin. All right, very good. Let's get to some LA Galaxy news. Now, to take all of our jovial start and immediately slam that into a wall so that way we can have to be serious here for a little bit. We have to update on the Cristian Pavon situation, and it's a situation now. I mean, it was certainly something that everybody was hanging on in terms of we were trying to keep track of Cristian Pavon, whether the LA Galaxy still want him, whether or not there would be a deal that works out with Boca, all of those things we were talking about. We had Greg Vanny on the show on Thursday night. He once again reiterated, said it during his opening press conference on Wednesday on our show on Thursday night. He goes, I want Cristian Pavon. He was pretty emphatic about it, and the LA Galaxy, as we know, were negotiating and talking with Boca, and that continues, and the whole thing. So that was all going on last week, and then I want to say it was either Friday night or Saturday night, there came alleged sexual assault charges against Cristian Pavon from a young woman who he met at a party, if I remember correctly, through all this. And it's something that happened in 2019 between the breaks of Major League Soccer, in the off season, basically. And she's been holding on to this for a year. And the allegation she makes is that he sexually assaulted her. And she went and tagged a whole bunch of Boca accounts and the team itself, and basically said, that he shouldn't be able to play there anymore, and that this is a problem, and that people need to take care of it. So those were the allegations that came out, and that sort of threw everything sideways there, Kevin. And all of a sudden now it becomes not so much can the LA Galaxy, reacquire Cristian Pavon from Boca? It opens up the bigger question: is should the LA Galaxy even be attempting to reacquire Cristian Pavon, from Boca, knowing that these allegations are out there?
Well, Pavone, through a lawyer, denied all the allegations and went to a police precinct and gave a statement. So he's fighting back against these. I am told, as of today, Monday afternoon, that talks continue. The Galaxy are still interested. And I guess the real question becomes, should they be interested? Depending on how serious this is, and I'm sure there's a lot. Well, obviously there's a lot that we don't know at this point. How serious these charges are, and how interested the Galaxy should be. And we say all of that with the history of what happened with Alexander Katai last year during the Black Lives Matter protests, and some of the things that his wife, Alexander Katai's wife, posted to social media, racist comments and pictures that eventually embarrassed the Galaxy, forced him to buy out Katai's contract, and he left and went back to Red Star Belgrade, I believe. But that was an embarrassing moment for the Galaxy, and that wasn't even caused by the player.
Right.
It was caused by the player's wife. I guess I'm trying not to equate these two, but in a sense, they are similar in that it's off the field stuff that is going to lead to questions about a person's morals and ethics and things, if any of this is proven true. And it's just a distraction that probably the Galaxy, the Galaxy do need to go into this with their eyes open and make sure that they check all this out, because it could loom, it could continue if this woman, continues with her suit, and it could wind up embarrassing the Galaxy. And even a guy who led the team in goals and assists last year is probably not worth all that. So the Galaxy need to be very careful in how they proceed. I'm told as of right now, as of Monday afternoon, that they are still talking to Pavone and still interested in bringing him back. Yeah,
and for that, I have to say, somebody needs to smack them upside the head. You can't. Listen, I don't want to say that he's innocent or guilty, and certainly we pretend that in the court of law that it's innocent until proven guilty. But this isn't, the Galaxy aren't trying this case in a court of law. The Galaxy are trying this case in the court of public opinion. Any link to this, and unless it gets rectified in a very short amount of time, I'm talking within the next couple of weeks, and it turns out that it was easily proven that it was 100% false, that the allegations go away, that somebody, they cannot dip their pen into this at all. They can't. There's too much risk for the LA Galaxy. And listen, this is somebody's life we're talking about, and I certainly understand that part. And I don't know this woman, and I've read the accounts of what she's put up, and I don't know Cristian Pavon well enough to tell you, oh yeah, this is absolutely fake. He would never do that. The bottom line is that these allegations are out there, and because they are out there, the LA Galaxy will inherit them if they continue down this path. And if you are the LA Galaxy who had the Katai situation, which, Kevin, you're right, they're not the same, but they're the same, because this can end up being another off the field embarrassment for the LA Galaxy. And let's say the LA Galaxy spend $10 million to get Cristian Pavon, and then it comes out that these allegations are true and that he's convicted, and then that lives with the LA Galaxy, and they're the ones who had a chance not to sign him, and that came out. They can't afford that, and Greg Vanney can't afford that, Kevin. Imagine being Greg Vanney. You have this clean slate. Everything really is working in your favor. You have all this positive press. Everything is moving forward in the direction that you want it to be, and you have a chance to put your stamp on this. I have to imagine Greg Vanney and all of the ideals that he stands for is probably going to sit there and look at Cristian Pavon and say, it's not worth it. And right now, despite the fact he could clearly be a team MVP, a league MVP, there's the Galaxy, in my opinion, unless this gets rectified very quickly, they need to walk away.
Well, and we talk a lot about club culture, and teams do have cultures. The Las Vegas Raiders, the Oakland Raiders, when they're in LA too, they have a reputation of being the outlaws, the renegades, the rebels. The New York Yankees have a different sort of club culture. That's why when players come there, they have to shave their facial hair and cut their long hair. Look what happened to Johnny Damon when he went from Boston to New York, how he had to change. I say all that because the Galaxy have a club culture, and yes, they have lost 57 games in the last 4 years, and they're struggling.
Right.
But they still are the marquee franchise at MLS. They are still the class of the league. They are the bar that everyone else tries to attain. And they among all teams cannot afford to have those kind of embarrassing incidences like you're talking about. That's why, if you remember the Katai thing, I think he went to one training session after that broke, and he was gone within 2 days, and it cost the Galaxy money. As far as we know, it cost them, he had a expensive contract, but the Galaxy said, no, this is not who we are. Yes, he's our starting winger and we need him, but we're not going to keep him because this is too embarrassing. The Galaxy have a reputation to protect. And right now, frankly, that's all they have going for them because of the last 4 seasons. They've been struggling. They need to protect that. And they need to get this right. Even if Pavone were to come back and lead the league in scoring, if this thing is not rectified and it's hanging over his head, that's not a win for the Galaxy. Even again, if he leads the league in goals, that's not good for the Galaxy brand.
Yeah, it's not good for. I mean, maybe there's more time to let this play out, and we certainly are going to talk, towards the end of the show about when the season may actually kick off, Kevin. Right? I mean, maybe there's more time to sort of let this play out and see where it's at. But unless this gets rectified in a positive situation, the LA Galaxy. I mean, even the fact that as of Monday afternoon, Kevin, that you're saying that they're still interested right now, I would have hit pause on that almost immediately. Now there are cynical people out there, and I've seen them, and while they're not 100% wrong, it's still not the correct way to look at this, which is, that's going to take a real hit to Cristian Pavone's transfer price, right? And so somebody may take a flyer on him and hope this all works out well. The LA Galaxy just can't be that team. And I don't care what the price is now. If he ends up being found guilty, or if these allegations prove out true, and he's linked as a member of your team, and you had the chance to walk away from him before that, you're going to look like morons. And if you're a moron in this case, like I said, Greg Vanney comes in. He can't be labeled a moron in the first, 6 weeks of his tenure, and they haven't even played a game yet. And that's the risk here. The risk for the LA Galaxy is huge. And the PR negative side of this is huge. And that's not, maybe if the allegations are completely false, that's not fair to Cristian Pavone. And this happened at absolutely the worst time for him, because realistically his stars, kind of starting to rise again. And so from the Boca perspective, they were looking to offload him. So it doesn't work well. It's not great. It's a horrible situation. I hope to God it's not true. And it's just, in my mind, Kevin, it's pretty simple. If you're the LA Galaxy, you say thank you very much, and you turn around and you walk away. And you know what? Greg Vanney can figure out another designated player. Greg Vanney and Dennis Nicolosi can find another designated player to bring into this team. And they may not be as good as Cristian Pavone, because Cristian Pavone was very, very good. But the PR hit you would take if you're wrong in this situation is gigantic.
Well, and again, Cristian Pavone, as everyone is innocent until proven guilty. In my dealings with him, I found him to be a really nice guy, very respectful, very polite. Now, people may have had other experiences with him. That was my experience when I first heard this. It didn't sound like the Cristian Pavone that I had met around the Galaxy. But, you're right. The possible downside for the Galaxy really outweighs the upside. And it's up to, I think it kind of falls to Cristian Pavone. I mean, we're talking not only in a different country, in an entirely different continent this happened. It's kind of up to Cristian Pavone at this point to allay those fears and to give the Galaxy evidence that this is not true and that he was not responsible for this. Otherwise, it's a gamble. Then it becomes a gamble, as you're saying. What if the season starts and then the second shoe drops, and then all of a sudden the Galaxy are into this guy for 2 or 3 years and tens of millions of dollars, and then they have that public relations nightmare again. It's the Galaxy. We're not talking about another team without this kind of reputation to protect. It's a dicey area, and it's tough. This is why you and I are not. Well, it's one of the reasons you and I are not general managers, because
this one is.
I'd hate to have to try to thread this needle. I mean, what do you do in this situation?
This one isn't tough. I mean, that's sort of the whole thing.
Well, except if he is innocent. I mean, it is
tough.
It could be tough if he is innocent. If he didn't, if it's proven that this didn't happen. And again, I'm not leaning that way. I'm just saying that right now we have this woman held on these charges for a year. They're serious charges. This needs to be rectified. We need to find out the truth. But it's 2 days old. How much do we know at this point? And I'm not trying to make excuses for anybody. This is serious stuff. And sexual abuse is a really serious problem. And it's way too prevalent. And there are way too many people that want to look the other way, especially when, how many times has it happened in the NFL, where you look the other way? We don't want to look the other way. But at the same time, I want to hear what Cristian Pavon has to say, at least at the outset.
Yeah, I mean, it's a non-starter for me. I just can't. It's tough on him if it's not true. But the LA Galaxy can't risk it, and I think if they do,
no, I agree with you on that.
Yeah.
I agree with you on that 100%.
He gets a chance.
Reputation.
He gets a chance to fix this. I mean, he gets a chance to prove his stuff. And like I said, I think there's some time for this, but if this drags out for a month or 2 months, there's no way. I don't care, because the LA Galaxy need to move on, right? I mean, we are going to assume that this camp starts at the end of January, okay? Whether or not that's true or not, that's what we're going to assume, because that's the current schedule, quote unquote schedule. There's no schedule that's out. That's the current schedule that we're working towards. And the LA Galaxy trying to bring in another designated player, and currently they have a DP spot open. They need to know who that is, because they need to plan everything else that is going on around those players, and figure out their salary cap and do all that stuff, and for a probable start in March. So all that stuff needs to be fixed, and it needs to happen relatively soon. Like I said, if there's a work stoppage, if there's a delay, if they push the start of the league back, then there's maybe a little bit more time in there. But it's not like there's endless amounts of time here. This decision has to be made pretty quickly, in my opinion.
What would have made you feel better, I think, is if instead of the Galaxy saying today that they are still talking, if they had said, we've paused negotiations.
Yes.
At the moment, we're not walking away. We've paused negotiations until we learn more information about what had gone on. I think that would have been maybe a wiser thing, because that would have given Cristian Pavon a little bit of breathing room. It would have allayed your fears that the Galaxy were rushing headlong into something they didn't understand. And it probably would have given the indication that they were taking these things seriously. I'm not saying they're not. I'm just saying that they do have a little bit of a perception problem when they say, we know about the allegations, we're still talking. Probably would have been better to say, we know about the allegations and we're taking a break now. We've stepped back. Who knows where the negotiations are, though? I mean, maybe they can't pause negotiations because they're at the point where Pavon's about to put pen to paper.
Right.
And maybe the Galaxy don't want to walk away at that point. It's a tough situation, and it came at the exact worst time, because Pavon's now back training with Boca, and there's a deadline here now. Yeah,
I mean, he is, and again, it doesn't change anything. Officially reported back to Boca. I mean, there was some talk about him not going back to Boca and not officially reporting back, and it took some time for it all to happen, but he officially reported back there. He is a Boca Juniors player. That is where he's at. Again, we always expected that, so that's not really a question. It's just now you have these allegations that get thrown into that. I want to stay consistent. Whenever the LA Galaxy were rumored to be involved with, I think, Centurion, who also played at Boca and had a horrible record of sexual assault charges and battery and a whole bunch of things, if I'm remembering correctly.
A whole drunken bar incidents.
Yeah.
And my recollection is Guillermo really wanted him. That was a guy Guillermo was pushing for, unless that those reports were untrue.
Right. Right. Yeah. I mean, that's sort of, it seemed that was at one point one of the things that was sort of going in that direction. So we talked about it. We discussed it, and, we said the Galaxy need to stay away from these guys. And he ended up, staying away. Again, I don't know if those reports were 100% true, whether or not the Galaxy were really that interested, but that's what the reports were saying whenever it came, but nothing happened in that formation. If you're going to be, consistent with that, then again, you need to look at what the downside is. The upside here is that you get Cristian Pavon back, and that all the charges get cleared up, and everybody's fine, and everybody moves along their way. And for whatever reason, this person lied. I don't think that that's going to be the case. But that's the dice that you're rolling at here. That's the best outcome. But that's good luck on that. I would imagine if you flipped a coin and tried to get it to land on its side, that's sort of where you're going, because clearly there was some thought put behind the allegations whenever this woman came forward. So, I hope it ends up being that it was false for some reason, and that Cristian Pavon, everybody, it was just one giant misunderstanding. There's a perfectly reasonable explanation for everything, and I have 0% hope that is actually the case. And so,
well, and there is precedent for this, and we go back to the Katai thing. I was really impressed by the fans' reaction to Katai, because if you remember at that time, they'd only played 2 games because we were in that in the COVID pause when all that happened. But it was, and again, it was his wife. It wasn't Alexander Katai did not make those social media posts, and he came out and denounced them when they came out. But the fans were insistent that the team get rid of Katai, and they did. The fans were saying our reputation, our affiliation with this team is more important than any assist or goals this guy may score. We need to get rid of him. I was really impressed with that the fans stood up and said, this reflects poorly on us. Now that precedent is set, it would be difficult for the Galaxy, and I don't think they would want to turn around and do anything differently and gamble on the fans' beliefs and value systems and the culture of the club, which comes from the supporters. So, I think you're right. I think the best thing to do for the Galaxy right now would at the very least would be to, pause negotiations until this thing works itself out. And if that's something that Boca Junior will not tolerate, if they're saying, look, we need to go forward with our season, well, then
good.
maybe they have to walk away.
Yeah, have at it. There is a difference there, and you can feel it, which is, Cristian Pavon was the bright light when there was much darkness for the LA Galaxy, last season, and clearly the team MVP. And, had things gone a little bit better, I think, for the Galaxy, maybe even him being attention in for the league MVP. He didn't finish that far off the mark in terms of being competitive for that league MVP title. But you can feel the difference. I mean, if Alexander Katai had scored 4 goals in those first 2 games for the LA Galaxy, I'm not saying it would have been different. I'm saying it could have been different, just the reaction. And I think you're seeing some of that. Again, this is a really horrible situation for anybody to be put in. And if he did it, then I hope he does the time. If you do the crime, you do the time. But at the same time, just the timing of all this is crazy bad for him. And so now the LA Galaxy have to make a decision, and I would think that they would be a little more public with their position, but we'll see. Let's give them time. And like you said, if things pause, if things break, then let's sort of see how this plays out. But I don't expect that the timeline of this playing out, Kevin, is going to be very long, or that you can make it very long.
Well, I think we've gone on too long with this, but let me add just one last thing, and perhaps this may figure into what the Galaxy are doing, the Galaxy's action. At the same token, this came out over the weekend, so it's, as we're speaking now, Monday, it's no more than 48 hours old, if even that old. The last thing the Galaxy want to do, they don't want to stab the supporters in the back, and they certainly don't want to lose the supporters' faith in building this culture now with Greg Vanney, and things seem to be heading in the right direction. But at the same token, you can't. I don't think you can ignore your players or turn your back on your players and say, we don't believe you, we don't trust you, we're not going to back you, we don't have your back on this. So again, it's a difficult needle to thread. The Galaxy don't want to throw Pavone under the bus either, and until they have the facts, and I don't think anybody has all of the facts now. There's an accusation, the player has denied it, the player is cooperating with the investigation. The only thing I can say is, I'll just say it again, the best statement would have been, we've paused negotiations to find out where the player is, where the team is, and we'll pick up negotiations again, whenever the time feels right.
Yeah.
They can't throw Pavone under the bus at this stage. Now, if with the Katai thing, it was totally different because the evidence was right there. There's no way you could say the sun was in my eyes, I didn't see that. The evidence was right there. This one, at least right now, what we're seeing in social media in Spanish from another continent, doesn't seem to be that clear cut. It's there is evidence is in dispute. It seems to me.
Yeah, there is. All right, we'll turn the page, and I'm sure we'll have more updates on that. Let's go to something a little bit happier. Let's try at least. I know that was a heavy way to open the show, but it was important that we talk about that and certainly get that information to you. Let's talk about Julian Araujo. Julian Araujo was out with the U.S. men's national team. We heard that he was had to withdraw from the U.S. men's national team U23 camp because he had an illness. We'll talk about that here in a second. And then the rumors popped up that Julian Araujo was close to being signed by Tottenham Hotspur in the EPL. So that was the rumor that came out about that. Now, let's go into a little bit of background before we completely dash everybody's hopes and do all that. We have heard that Julian Araujo has been mentioned by some of the top clubs in soccer and around the world. We heard about Juventus. At one point there was, I believe, scouts from Liverpool possibly interested as well. We heard that rumor that came across. There were a bunch of them, and so it's no surprise to hear Julian Araujo, and I will imagine that you will hear more to hear Julian Araujo's name mentioned to some of the bigger clubs around the world of football. So that being said, we were able to dig into this one a little bit and tell you that the rumor is not true. Okay, so that was it's just a rumor. It was picked up. It went around for a little while. Everybody got excited, and then everybody linked his leave from the U.S. men's national team as well as part of this rumor. And certainly it looked like there was some timing there that lined up that sort of made this more real in some people's minds. I can tell you that I was told specifically that at the moment there seems to be nothing to the Spurs rumor. I'll say what I said on my tweet so that way I make sure I quote it correctly. There's acknowledgement that, and I quote, Julian is a highly touted prospect, but that his future time with the LA Galaxy could be measured in years and not days. So meaning that he could stick around for a year or two with the LA Galaxy, and that the Galaxy see him as an important part to their club, Kevin. So...
Well, a couple of points of clarification there. He was called up to the U23 national team, not the men's national team. Why is that significant? Well, there is a camp going on with the men's national team, and it is in conjunction with the U23 team. The U23 team, remember, Julian's only 19. The U23 team will be the team that will participate in Olympic trials and the Tokyo Olympics, if the Tokyo Olympics are held, and Julian's with that team. As far as the European thing, rumors, the rumors of him leaving this year are not true. The rumors of the interest are very much true. And I'm told that there is more than one English Premier League team. There was Juventus. Julian going to Europe, unless there's a change in form or a tragic injury, that is going to happen. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. It's not going to happen this year. He's going to play for the Galaxy this season.
Yeah,
and in my mind,
you say that, and you say that, and I'm just saying, don't be surprised if summertime if he leaves. I know the plan is for him to stay for the next year or two, right? But I cannot get 100% behind the fact that the Galaxy wouldn't move him at the summer if the price is right.
Oh no, and we'll talk in a minute about why this Galaxy team, I believe, is a work in progress. And Greg Vanney seems to be very clear about that. Remember, he didn't talk like when Guillermo came, he talked about getting to the playoffs, and that was the goal. I haven't heard Greg Vanney talk about season records or goals or playoffs. I keep hearing him talking about the project and setting things up and building foundation. I think this is a couple of year project. I think Vanney is going to go about it in a much different and more methodical way than Guillermo did. And all that means there could be tough sledding for a year or so. Maybe two. So yes, I think if the Galaxy had offers, they'd probably move him in the summer. But it kind of gets back to my point of the timing right now for Julian to stay here, to stay with the Galaxy and stay in the U.S. I think that would be the best thing for him. Why? Because he wants to play. I believe he does, and I think it would be great for his career to play for the U23 team, to play in the Olympics. There's going to be the Gold Cup this year, and there's 8 World Cup qualifiers that'll be coming up in the fall. But the Gold Cup, that doesn't happen during a FIFA window, and not all of it anyways. The Olympics is not a FIFA tournament. That means teams, if he goes to a European team, they do not have to release him to go play in the Olympics. I think that's something that Julian and his family would like to see him do. So if he moves in the summer transfer window, that's great, because he'd still be able to play in the Olympics at that point. So I think Julian staying, into the summer, at least until after the Olympics, I think that's good for his career. I think he'll be on that team. I think it would be a good experience for him. I think it would help his career. And as far as the Galaxy goes, if we're going to be concerned about the Galaxy when we talk about Julian's future, they don't have anybody else to play right back. They may sign somebody.
Yeah, not yet.
They've got to look at that, because you're right, Julian. It's only a matter of time. He may not go today. He may not go this summer, but he's going soon. They're going to need. They don't have any backup. Rolf Felcher's gone. They need another person at right back. So the Galaxy essentially been served notice. You better get on this quickly, because there's a lot of interest, and this guy's not going to be around. And if the Galaxy are in a rebuilding stage in the summer and they can use that money, that might be the time to move them.
Yeah, it very well could. Julian Araujo, listen, I think that if you're looking at, the LA Galaxy and the right back situation, we've always said a backup right back that is going to be a borderline starter this year is needed. If you listen to Greg Vanny on our show, and I know we laughed about it on Thursday, but I'll laugh about it again. Whenever you ask him where you think the LA Galaxy need to improve, Kevin, he starts at the top and he ends up at the back. So he sees room for improvement across all areas. And so, the defense is one of those, certainly. It's very interesting. The other part about this, though, speaking to the LA Galaxy, I asked, what was his illness, and I was told, that they are not allowed to release that information. Here's the bit of information I was able to drum up, though. If you could, of course, imagine, and speaking to a source, was that there's things going on in this world right now. We have a global pandemic, and if there was an illness that was going around, it would probably be COVID-19. So as far as I can tell, and certainly reading between the lines from some different sources, I can tell you that it seems all likely that Julian Araujo has COVID-19. If that's the case, wish him a speedy recovery, so that way he can get back and back to playing. And certainly having to dip out of the U23/U.S. men's national team camp there is not a great timing for things. Remember, Mike McGee got sick in his maybe one of his only U.S. men's national team camps, and ended up never getting a cap, I believe. So these things take a toll sometimes, and so hopefully Julian is already feeling better and on his way back to being ready to play some soccer.
Well, thankfully, he's already proven himself to both the U23 coach, Jason Kreis, and to Greg Berhalter. They know a little bit about him. You're right. I remember that Mike McGee camp. It was the January camp, and it was the day of the friendly. The January camp always ends with at least one friendly. And I was told that Mike McGee was going to start that game, and then woke up that morning very sick. And he wanted to play, even sick. He wanted to play because he knew he's not going to get many opportunities. That was under Jurgen Klinsmann, but he just couldn't do it and never was called into camp again.
There you go. So it all matters. You have to keep track of those things. Let's go a little bit now to some more rumors. If we're going to stay in the rumor mill, let's talk about a rumor that certainly seems to be true. In fact, we know it's true. We know that there's a lot to this rumor. At the time on, let's see, when was that? Friday, I believe, because we had a Thursday show, and then Friday this rumor started to come out, was that we had a goalkeeper from West Brom, Jonathan Bond, and certainly I have been flooded with, Kevin, all of the James Bond gifts that have come through.
Like his uniform number, got to be 007.
Got to be 007. I know. People said, I was making the joke. I said, if the Galaxy signed this guy, they better put a number 7, a 007, Galaxy goalkeeper kit out there, because it would sell like hotcakes.
And those big Mickey Mouse gloves, one of the fingers should be gold, gold
finger. Yes, wow. See, and I didn't think we could wait. Hold on. There we go. Okay. I just wanted to make sure that we got that one more in there, because, that was some of these jokes, and I've seen all of the jokes so far. I don't think that there's any that have been missed. I've seen the Goldfinger one. There's I don't know. There was a million of them, so they're all out there.
Well, Oh, you know that if there's like a collision or something in the goal, we're going to say that he was shaken, not stirred.
Shaken, not stirred. I was going to, yeah, yep. So plenty of those. 6'5", 27 years old.
Drives an Aston Martin.
He does. At least I don't think he does. He should, but I don't think he does. He's been playing with West Brom in the English Premier League, although saying he's been playing is a little bit of a gift on a lot of things. He plays for the reserve team more than anything, and that's sort of what you need to know. Now, the interesting thing here, Kevin, is usually I can go find highlights on people, and it's really easy. I will tell you right now, it's a lot harder to find highlights on exactly what Jonathan Bond has done and where he's at. He has a crazy, wacky transfer saga. If you ever go through and go on a transfer market and see all of the teams that he has played for, and a lot of that comes on loan. So he's with West Brom, but he's loaned out to Reading, and or there's a free transfer from Reading. He's with Peterborough, but really that was the end of loan with Reading, and so he just bounces to places all over the place, over and over and over again. And so when you're trying to watch that, it's difficult to track him down. This is one of probably, Kevin, I think, at least in my mind, one of the most difficult guys to sort of get an eye on, and whether or not the Galaxy are even bringing him in as a number one. I would assume that if you go to England and you get a goalkeeper, and we should mention that it was reported that he has an American passport. He has a United States passport. That should indicate, and yes, legal residents of the United States are eligible for passports, and so because of that, there's a good chance that he doesn't take up an international slot. However, saying that, he's English-born. He played for Wales in their youth system, then switched over, I think, in 2013, and then played for England in their youth system. So he has those two backgrounds to sort of fall on. So I don't exactly know how the United States background fits in there, but if it comes through and the LA Galaxy don't have to use an international slot on a goalkeeper, which I'm usually against, this could be an interesting signing. This could be one of those that pays off, Kevin. And if it pays off, it's one of those that means the LA Galaxy have a much improved, 2021 season. And it could be that, this falls completely apart. And we've seen it around the league. If your goalkeeper's not working for you, you're not going to have a good team. And it kind of almost doesn't matter what else the rest of the team is doing.
No, if you don't have a goalkeeper, you give up a lot of goals.
That's who
the goalkeeper coach is going to be Dr. No, probably.
No.
I'm told that he could be announced as early as Wednesday. Unclear to me. I believe it's supposed to be a free transfer, but when, as you said, you talk about his history, it would make sense that it would be a loan. That's kind of the way his career has gone. We don't know if he would. If he came in, he would go to number one on the depth chart immediately. A goalkeeper. We still have Jonathan Klinsmann.
Not really.
And Dave.
Not yet.
Not really.
Yeah. Neither of those guys, right? Because neither of them are technically on the roster right now.
No. But they're still there. They're still available. The Galaxy could still go and get them if they wanted. But it does look as if they're committing to Bond, because they haven't. I haven't heard any rumors about Bingham coming back. I haven't heard any talk about Jonathan Klinsmann coming back. Now, remember Tyler Miller, when LAFC got rid of him and he went to Minnesota. That didn't happen until about this time of year. So the Galaxy still do have time to talk if they wanted to talk to Bingham. And, it is a gamble to bring a guy in from Europe at 27, a guy who hasn't played a ton of games, and say, you're going to start 34 games for us. But again, the Galaxy are in a rebuilding mode. And, I do appreciate Greg Vanney's honesty, the fact that he isn't trying to build us up for, if everything goes right, we're going to go all the way to MLS Cup. I think he's been pretty clear about we need to just tear this thing down and start over again. And when you look at the roster now, try to put together a starting lineup. You really can't. So I do think that Greg is going very methodically, and he's going to build this thing up. And as you mentioned, he talks about every phase of the game needs improvement, and we need to add people. This is the start of that. So, maybe Jonathan Bond isn't a guy who's going to win Keeper of the Year honors this year and take the team to the MLS Cup final, but maybe he's the guy that you start to build around. And I think that's where the Galaxy is at this point. And that's not to be a bad thing. I think the Galaxy just wasted 4 years. We heard in each of the last 4 seasons how this was going to be, if things broke right, this was going to be a team that could go deep in the playoffs. And none of those teams were. Maybe Zlatan could have carried the team, but really those weren't playoff teams. I think Greg Vanney has the right approach. This is not a playoff team. This is a team we're putting together. Be patient. Let us get this done. And maybe Jonathan Gold is the kind of guy that you need to do that with.
Yeah, Jonathan Bond.
Yeah, Jonathan Gold.
Yeah, that guy too.
We know who Jonathan Gold is, right?
No.
Jonathan Gold was the great Pulitzer Prize-winning food critic at the Times, and he died not all that long ago, and is still obviously in my memory.
Yeah, I was going to say.
No one else's.
Well, one of the reason that you can look at this and say, a free transfer probably is coming is West Brom. I think is 19th out of 20 in the English Premier League right now. They look like they're going to be sent down, and if they're sent down, then they're going to need to offload some of the excess weight on their roster. The Galaxy getting in there at this time is a good time to do it. So we'll see. We'll keep an eye on that. I don't imagine that he's ridiculously expensive. His market value, and this is not what his salary is, but his market value, according to Transfer Market, is about $275,000, which is down from his high of about $550,000. If you figure market value in there, it doesn't equate to salary. It never does. And if it's a free transfer, then they got basically his salary off the books, which is one of the things they wanted to do because they're going to go down and get relegated. So if you look at that, I would be surprised if the LA Galaxy are paying him more than $250,000 a year, which if I remember correctly, is a savings off of what Bingham brought as well. So I think Bingham was $375, if I remember correctly. I don't have my roster with all of the 2019 wages on it, not even the 2020. So, this could be a bit of good work for the LA Galaxy. So that's sort of where we're at. As Kevin has said, keep your eyes peeled perhaps for an announcement on Wednesday.
That'll be Wednesday. Tomorrow, Tuesday, we're supposed to get another announcement, which would be the signing. We've known that this has been in the works for a long time, and I understand MLS has been looking at the contract for a while, but the signing of Jorge Villafana, who played for Chivas USA, was the first recipient of the MLS Sueño Award, which anyone who remembers that is too old. But basically, back in the day, Univision had a contest where they would invite players to a tryout, and the winner of that tryout would get a contract with an MLS club. And Jorge Villafana was a teenager in Anaheim whose uncle wanted him to go to the tryout. And Villafana was one of the last people to arrive. In fact, the registration had closed when he got there. I think he had to borrow someone's equipment even to do the tryout, and wound up being the guy who won the contract to play for Chivas USA. Wound up playing in age group national teams for the U.S. I think he also played for the senior national team at some point, but has turned himself into a heck of a left back. And he is supposed to be announced as the newest member of the Galaxy back line on Tuesday. And, when we talk about the rebuilding the team and we don't know what's going to happen with Pavone and what do you hang your hat on? I think the Galaxy are going to have two really dynamic outside backs in Julian Araujo and Jorge Villafana. They're both guys that can get up and down the field. They're both good defenders. They both get involved in the offense. They both play very wide, I think, especially Villafana loves just to hug that sideline. I think those are going to be two really exciting players. Now, are they going to carry a team to an MLS Cup final? No, but they're going to be fun to watch. And I think that Villafana is a good addition. He is going to be very different from Insua in the way he plays. I think you're going to see much more offense out of him than we saw from Insua, as good as he was. And I thought he was the Galaxy's best defender last year.
Second best, but yes, correct. So that's where it is. We keep talking about expectations for 2021 and sort of where Vanny is, and I know you have pretty low expectations. I'll tell you why mine are probably a little bit higher. I don't want to say they're low. I just think they're accurate. I think this is the correct approach to, rather than try to do two things at once, rebuild and win. I think it's better to tear it down and to build the foundation. Now, if they catch lightning in a bottle and they win, so much the better. But I don't think you can do two things at once. So anyway, go ahead. I'm sorry to interrupt. No, that's fine. No, I appreciate the clarification. Here's why the LA Galaxy will still. So first of all, it's LA, so you can't be where if Greg Vanney is worse than the LA Galaxy were last year, Kevin, he will have problems. All right, and he will have problems. So
he won't be. You and I could play, and it would be a better team.
I agree. It sets him up. It sets him up for a very good situation, knowing how horrible 2020 was, and understanding that 2021 doesn't have to be all that great in order for it to be better than 2020. But what that does is it shows progress, right? It shows the little bit. Look, hey, we were better than we were last year. We're getting better. We can see it. And as long as Vanny can move that bar in the correct direction, if they can keep moving the ball down the field towards the goal there, then he's going to be fine and he'll be able to stay and he'll be able to work his plan. The problem comes with, and Guillermo certainly had this problem, was, hey, the LA Galaxy, were better in 2019 than they were in 2018. And that was a step forward. And so then in 2020, you needed to take another step forward. And instead, the LA Galaxy took a step backwards. And that's what will get you in trouble. And Greg Vanney is, as touted as he is, and as much of a legend as he is with the club and all those things, if he starts taking steps backwards, Kevin, he will have a problem in Los Angeles. And I know that's, it's almost not fair to say this early into his tenure. I mean, we're a couple days into his tenure, almost a week. But that's the truth. And so, listen, I think he's going to be set up fine. I think that he can put together a team that will do better than they did in 2020. And 2021 will be a better season for LA Galaxy fans. And like you said, maybe they find some things. Maybe they hit right on some of the players that they went. Maybe Jonathan Bond is the real deal. And he ends up being, the number one starter. And everybody's like, wow, I can't believe nobody went out and tried to get this guy, right? That's what we always say whenever somebody, a relative unknown, comes in and says, wow, who did that? And maybe this is a result of not just the relationships with Dennis DeClosa, but the relationships with Greg Vanney. And maybe this is a result of some analytics. All those things will eventually be proven out. But Jonathan Bond has a chance at least to come in here. I imagine that if you go to England, by the way, again, Kevin, that you're probably trying to get a number one. But we sort of have to sit here and hear what the LA Galaxy have to say about Jonathan Bond and sort of and talk to Greg Vanney about it and see where he sees him fitting in as a starter.
And when we talk about what Greg Vanney is trying to do, you're right. He's been here a week. I mean, and I'm telling you now how many years he's going to need to turn it around. That's right. That's obviously ridiculous. But you can look at history. When Bruce Arena he came in the middle of the 2008 season. Now, this was a totally different team, and there was a nucleus there with Beckham and Donovan. But he came in at the end of the 2008 season. The team was terrible. He cleaned house. I think he there were 20 or 25 player changes in that offseason.
He got rid of Greg Vanney. Greg Vanney retired in 2008. Yes.
And that team that Bruce Arena rebuilt went to the MLS Cup final and lost, but went to the MLS Cup final in 2009. So you can rebuild the team and you can rebuild the foundation and you can change everything overnight and take a team to the MLS Cup final. I don't know that that's happening here. When you look at Greg Vanney's history, he came in Toronto. He came in similar to Bruce Arena. He came in at the end of the 2014 season in Toronto when Toronto was not doing well, had never made the playoffs. That next season, they went 15-4, making improvement. They were the year that he was an interim coach, they were 11-15-8. He finished that season, came in the next year, 15-4. Then after the year after that, they were 14-9-11. You see, they're getting better. And then 2 years in 2017, they won 20 games, Supporters Shield, right. The only domestic trouble in MLS history. So it took him a couple of seasons to turn it around, but he made progress as he was doing it, as you said.
Yes, and that's the important part. That's the only part that he needs to do is make progress. That and beat LAFC. Those are, those are going to be the things in the measuring sticks that Greg Vanney's going to have to deal with. Keep losing to LAFC and see how long you stick in LA. I'm just telling you right now, that's an issue, right? It was always funny because I remember going to Arizona State and then having the rivalry with the University of Arizona. It was a mandatory sort of thing, which was all coaches said that they were going to come in and try to win the Pac-10 at the time. They'll win the Pac-10 and that we have to beat the University of Arizona. And then one coach had a very good record against the University of Arizona, but not so much against the rest of the Pac-10 and got fired. And he was like, that's ridiculous. You can't say that anymore. It's not just beat Arizona. You have to do, and we're like, yeah, you have to do other things. But, that was one of the important markers that you have to do. And that's what it is here, in LA. You have to beat San Jose. You have to beat LAFC. You have to go after the teams and match up with the teams like Seattle, and the big teams in Major League Soccer. And you have to be competitive in all of those games. And if you're not, you will not stick around. As much as Greg Vanney checks all the boxes, he has to make some progress in those things and make sure that the LA Galaxy are heading in the right direction, which I think he'll do. But yeah.
You don't have to go all the way over to Tombstone for your references. I mean, it happens here too, right, where you had USC, playing for the national title every year, but UCLA would knock them off, and UCLA coaches would stick around with losing records because they were able to knock USC off every year.
Yep, absolutely, it happens. So that's the thing. Let's get to another just real fresh rumor, and it's not even a rumor yet. It's just connecting dots, and it goes to a bigger sort of question as well. One of the Instagram accounts, Only Galaxy News, I want to make sure that I at least throw it, and I don't know if that's where it originated, but that's where I saw it. So basically saying that former Toronto FC midfielder Victor Vasquez recently said in an interview that he would like to play for the LA Galaxy, basically, obviously, playing with Greg Vanney. He knows Greg Vanney. He wants to keep playing with Greg Vanney. Greg Vanney knows Victor Vasquez. He knows that they would that maybe he would possibly fill a hole that the LA Galaxy want in central midfield. So there are things that happen whenever you have a coach that is established and has had success in the league. And you can look, it's not hard to go look at Bruce Arena, and he just got, AJ De La Garza and Ima Boateng to the New England Revolution. Why? Bruce knows who Ima is. Bruce knows who AJ is. He knows what he's going to get from him, and those guys know him, and they want to go play for him. So that's how things work. And I would expect that Greg Vanney has the ability to do that as well. And maybe it's not, Victor Vasquez. Maybe it's somebody else down the line that has played with Greg Vanney and likes Greg Vanney, and Greg Vanney likes him. And that's how you can start putting pieces together. That's how you start getting that draw. Also, if you were in Toronto and there's a job opening in Los Angeles, I've heard the weather between those two places are different, and because they're different like that, maybe LA is the better place. I don't know. Maybe you like snow and ice and cold, then you love Toronto. But if you like, sunshine, because it was 72 degrees here by the beach in the middle of winter, then maybe Los Angeles is good. And Greg Vanney. That all makes sense to me, Kevin.
Well, yeah, and you see it, if you change jobs, you'd want to take, and you were in a position of authority, you'd probably want to bring people that you were comfortable with in your old job, people that made you successful to the point where you got the new job offer. You'd want to bring them along, and that's why we see Dan Kalishman and others on the coaching staff in Toronto coming to LA. These are people that Greg's comfortable with, and they're comfortable with him. We saw Chad Marshall follow Ziggy Schmidt all over MLS. That was a guy that Ziggy believed in, and Chad Marshall wanted to play for Ziggy, and so he followed him around. I do think we're going to see some of that, and that's all to the good. And when it really is helpful, when you get into the season and maybe a player becomes available because his team's not doing well and you have a hole to fill, all of a sudden you don't have to go out and scout a bunch of people. There's somebody out there that you're comfortable with that you can go and make a trade for. And we see that in every sport. And I do think that Greg's probably going to wind up getting some good people that might otherwise have not been on the LA Galaxy's radar just because they want to play for Greg and Greg trusts them and wants to bring them here. And a lot of times it is a Moneyball kind of thing. You talk about analytics. It is a Moneyball kind of thing. It's like nobody values this guy like I do because I know him and I can get things out of him that other people can't. And I do think you're going to see probably, 2 or 3 players over the next year or so coming in here that other people didn't want that wind up being real contributors, maybe not starters, but contributors.
Right. And that's something, the depth of the LA Galaxy is something that we've been criticized the front office for the last, 2, 3, 4 years. So it's a thing. And I know Greg Vanney knows that it's a thing as well. So we'll keep an eye on that and see how that all goes, but expect more rumors to pick up. This is about the time when things start to happen. So again, the LA Galaxy have 17 players on the roster, I believe right now. We're looking at 18 and 19 possibly announced this week, probably announced this week. I should probably go with that as well. So, you're starting to fill up that roster and you're starting to move towards this end of January start. Now, Kevin, let's talk about the end of January start because it's
not going to happen.
I was going to say it's a question mark. I've been getting text messages certainly from people who are like, hey, when's MLS going to release that schedule? And I'm like, you think MLS even has any idea when they're going to start right now?
Didn't we have this in the summer? Weren't we talking about this back then, that they were not going to start on time?
Yes. We it was all tied to the fact of getting people back in stadiums, right? And as of right now, although it is, I think, trending in, first of all, global pandemic, and certainly here in the United States, is completely out of control and crazy. But in terms of getting people vaccinated, they're starting to make a little bit of headway on that now. We're starting to increase that rate of people being vaccinated. And before, I think it was going to take with the amount they were doing per day, Kevin, it was going to take 3.5 years to do the entire population of the United States. And it's like, well, that's not going to work. That's too slow. And today, based on the projections that they had today, if they could keep that up, they could do it the entire U.S. population population in like 1.2 years. So we're getting closer, and eventually I think you're going to find that they're going to be able to do this in, the next probably 6 to 8 months. You can do the entire population if the entire population would actually take it.
Here's the two problems MLS is facing, and that impacts the schedule. One is they get the majority of their revenue, 95%, from game day receipts. That means sponsorships, game day sales, souvenirs, concessions, parking, all that game day stuff. So if there isn't anyone in the stadium on game day, they lose 95% of their revenue. Don Garber said they lost $1 billion in revenue in the 2020 season, which was interrupted by COVID. I don't know if I buy that, but certainly they lost a significant amount of money. Don Garber did say they can't afford to go through another season like that. I agree with him on that. Whatever they lost, they can't afford to lose that much again. So MLS wants to push back the schedule as long as possible to give this vaccine time to work so that they can get some fans in the stands. Well, we see 27,000 at Dignity Health Sports Park? Probably not. Might we see 12 or 15? Maybe. Will we see other stadiums with fans? Yes, all that's going to help. So the longer they can push back the start of the season, the better off they're going to be. Maybe they don't get 34 games. Maybe they get 17 or 15 or 12. Any of that helps. But by moving the season back, they still can't play more than a couple of games a week, and they can't continue that pace. You can't play. They did it this year, over a series of weeks, but you can't play 3 games a week, for an entire summer. So they run the risk of, by delaying this, they're going to run into the Gold Cup. They're going to run into the Olympics. They're going to run into 8 World Cup qualifiers in the fall. And that doesn't just, you say, well, the U.S. national team, all their players are in Europe. Fine. But the Honduran, national team, the Mexican national team, El Salvador, Trinidad, Jamaica, all of those teams are going to be playing in those World Cup qualifiers, and they have players in MLS that they need. So other players, have players that are going to go overseas and play in World Cup qualifiers in Europe. So the longer MLS pushes this back, they're going to wind up playing their most important games, maybe even their playoff games, missing a ton of key players because they're off playing World Cup qualifiers. That's sort of the dilemma that Major League Soccer has. The longer we wait to start the season, the better we're going to do financially. But the competition is going to suffer, especially late in the season when so many players are gone on international duty.
Yeah, and of course this all happens in the shadow of the owners enforcing the force majeure, which is basically forcing everybody back to the.
You speak French.
I do. That was oui. By the way, if you walk into a store in France and you say bonjour and you do it with a really convincing French accent, they will speak to you in French. And if you don't know French, that's a tough situation to be in. I know I've been there multiple times, but they're usually very nice. So
yeah, you sounded like Belle at the beginning of Beauty and the Beast when she's running around selling the bread.
That's exactly what that's where I've learned my French accent from. That exactly. Good. I'm glad we got that out of the way. But it is under this auspice of having to renegotiate a collective bargaining agreement again. We talked on Thursday about MLS's proposal to extend the current CBA to the 2020 through the 2027 season. Basically take 2 years at a fixed rate before the players would be able to renegotiate. So that way they save money in the 26-27 seasons. And that would hopefully offset the $150 to $100 million that they're going to lose, in this season if they go with the current CBA. So they're trying to sort of backlog or backload the savings for MLS owners. We'll see if any of that sort of sticks. But the article that sort of talked about when they could possibly be pushing this back to, Jeff Carlisle had it over at ESPN. Jeff's a good friend of mine, so it's good to see Jeff out there breaking news like he always does. But he's saying in his article that sources tell ESPN the date could be pushed back to May due to the pandemic. So you go from the beginning of March and then April and then possibly May, and that may not be the beginning of May, it might be the end of May. So just sort of keep that in mind as you understand what's going on. And then therefore you and I talking about a whole bunch of stuff at the beginning and about timing, that can be drawn out a little bit. And as we see this being drawn out, that means that camp may not start in January. In fact, it probably won't. But that means more roster building time for the LA Galaxy, for Greg Pavone. So, it's not a great scenario. It's not a great situation, but we're not in a great situation here in the U.S. and certainly not in California. God bless all of our amazing first responders. And I see Galaxy fans who are first responders, who are doctors and nurses, and who are getting vaccinated. And that's awesome. And I'm super happy for you. you. I think that's great, and that's the direction we need to head. I'll tell you right now, if you're on the fence about getting a vaccine, Kevin, and you want to go to any Galaxy games this year, you're probably not going to get to go if you don't get a vaccine. So if that's the thing that sways you, let it sway you, and go get the vaccine as soon as it's available to you. Absolutely. I mean, if somebody offered it to me right now, I would take it. I mean, like, hey, where are the, not like black market, completely legal way, but if somebody was like, hey, we got some extra ones, yes, right now, this arm, please.
Well, and if they do push the season back, obviously they push training camp back, and that takes away the deadline that was sort of looming over this forced manure clause, that would have, they have 30 days from the time that this was enacted, which was last month, in the end of December. They have 30 days. They have until the end of January to either negotiate in good faith a new or the additions, corrections to the collective bargaining agreement they have now, or throw that out and start a new one. My point is if they're not starting training camp at the end of January, there's a threat of a lockout doesn't really do anything because there's nothing to lock. There's nobody coming. Right. If they push that back a couple of months, it gives them time, takes away that deadline, gives them time to think and maybe negotiate something. And maybe the league backs off on that. Maybe if we get to mid-February or the beginning of March and training camps haven't opened yet and the vaccine program is moving forward and MLS can see some light at the end of the tunnel, maybe MLS says, we don't need those financial savings anymore, or at least we don't need them to that degree. Right. One of the things that's involved in that too, and you talked about how they want to extend the CBA 2 seasons and take some of that salary savings. What MLS is offering the players in trade for that is players last year took 5% pay cut and they took cuts in bonus, team and individual bonuses across the board. MLS is saying we will restore your salaries and bonuses to 100%, right? But give us these savings on the back end. In other words, the salary cap will not grow at the rate that it would have grown over the next 5 years. It'll grow over the next 7 years. So players are giving money back. They're giving a substantial amount of money back, but it's more gradiated. The growth of the salary cap will be slower.
Yeah, and with a World Cup coming up in 2022, and then with one in 2026, what's actually happening with that contract, Kevin, is you're seeing the players get pushed back and through 2 World Cup cycles, right? And the World Cup usually involves an increase in spending around soccer, an increase of the eyes of the world on soccer, and has usually done well for the MLS players, where they get a larger contract, a larger collective bargaining agreement that sort of puts them in good position. So the owners pushing that through 2027 push that past 2 World Cup cycles. So listen, in Jeff Carlisle's article, he says that one source told ESPN that the MLSPA has instructed players to prepare for a scenario in which basically it would be a work stoppage, whether that is a lockout or whether that is, a strike by the players. So that's where that's sort of where you sit. It's not a super happy way to sort of end things, but there is, I think we're getting to the light at the end of the tunnel. We're just in the darkest part of the tunnel at this point. So maybe that light is getting brighter. That is when it's darker and the light gets brighter because it's darker. Never mind. I was trying to do something there.
Let me defend the players a little bit on this. If people are taking management side, the two sides negotiated in good faith, and they had a real relationship built when they negotiated the CBA in January, start of February. The players felt really good about it. They got things like they got charter flights for an increased amount of road trips. They got some help in free agency. They got revenue sharing from the new TV contract. They got a lot of things, and the league was happy with it too. The league could live with it. They thought that they had a good CBA. Then COVID hit, and it was Don Garber's decision to throw out the CBA, and he threatened a lockout in June and totally threw out all that goodwill that had been built up. The players felt like they had been hoodwinked. They didn't like the fact that there was a threat of a lockout. By that time, the players really had no choice but to take the salary cuts that the league was insisting upon. In fact, the players that had agreed to the salary cut before the lockout was even threatened. 1 out of every 5 players in MLS last season, I don't know if you know this, they tested positive for COVID. So the players felt like they sacrificed a lot. They sacrificed money. They sacrificed their health. They played in a quarantine environment for 6 weeks. no player in MLS is comparing themselves to what's going on in the real world, but they do think that they suffered a little bit and helped the league through this difficult part. For the league then to turn around and say, we want even more, we want you guys to sacrifice more, I think the Players Association is beginning to look a little bit feckless if they don't do something, if they don't stand up. And so I do think the Players Association at a certain point needs to take a stand, whether it's on principle, whether it's just to serve notice that they're not going to be pushed over again. I do think that this looks really bad. And by delaying the season, I do think it gives both sides time to posture, both sides a chance to pound their chest and to act like they're really standing up for something, and then to back down and get something done before the season is impacted. This delay might turn out to be the best thing for the labor negotiations.
We'll see how it all plays out. That's part of the fun on this podcast. We will literally take you week by week all the way through it, and get you updated on the LA Galaxy as it goes, and things that are interested around the league. A busy week, which I expect for the LA Galaxy. At least a couple announcements coming your way. That seems to be happening. Lots of other things. It's roster building time, and this is where you sort of get to. This is the hope, Kevin. This is how it's the hope that kills you. This is where that hope is established, right? Is that in every offseason you add players, and then you get to imagine with those players panning out and how those players do, and when they do well or they don't do well throughout that season. That's where the hope that kills you is in there. The LA Galaxy firmly within the hope building realm right now, and certainly a lot of things to discuss, a lot of things to get done. 13 players still to be added to the roster, 17 currently on the roster. So we'll see who ends up an LA Galaxy player at the end of this week, and we will continue on that, of course, with the live show on Thursday night. Yes.
You know what? Greg Vanney is unbeaten since he signed.
That is absolutely 100% true, and that will remain true until he plays a game and loses. So, hey, like you said, hope. Just keep building that hope up. Build that hope tower up just higher and higher, and then watch it all come crashing down whenever it goes. But I think they got it right.
What do you think the chances are if the Galaxy sign Jonathan Bond, which looks like they're going to do, that they give him 007? Why not?
Zero.
What's the argument against doing that?
They won't do it. I mean, that's going to be. I would think that they would consider that beneath them. I mean, I think it would be great, but it's fun, Kevin, and sometimes I think the LA Galaxy forget to have fun. All right, this is soccer's supposed to be fun, right, Kevin? That's what we're told. Soccer is fun, but unfortunately, the way the LA Galaxy have played recently, that has not been fun. And I've been there watching it not be fun. It's not fun to watch bad soccer, and that's what we've been watching for the last 4 years or so. Outside,
Did you see the Matt Beasler introduction video for him signing with Austin?
I thought it was great.
That was anyone who hadn't seen it, it's got to be on YouTube.
Yeah,
Matt Beasler, Austin FC. It was great.
It's fun.
That's what that was fun. And it's a sport. It's supposed to be fun, especially now. This time of year.
Can I tell you also that somebody recently on our Discord, and by the way, this is that shameless plug for our Discord. It's in the description of this episode. You can go do it if you're not there. Somebody recently went into our MLS group that we have, our MLS room that we have, and you can post anything about teams that are not the Galaxy in there, and went and posted progress photos of all the stadiums that are currently being built. St. Louis, Cincinnati, Austin, Columbus. I want to say that there's one more that I'm missing that I can't remember. Nashville. Yeah, Nashville. That was it. And oh my God, I just want to go to all these stadiums. I mean, the stuff that is being built right now, to be alive in this time, this is going to sound really corny, but to be alive in this time right now, Kevin, to see the stadiums that Major League Soccer is building around the country, it gets me so pumped up for like road trips and being able to go cover games in different stadiums. Like Minnesota built, I think, one of the most gorgeous stadiums in all Major League Soccer. I just want to go see the LA Galaxy play a game in Minnesota.
I've been there twice. I've seen the Galaxy play there twice. It is amazing. The funnest part, though, is they have this amazing bar. You've seen the bar in San Jose.
Yes.
This one is better, and it has well over 100 like micro brews. I was working. I didn't get to partake in any of that, but for a fan, I just can't imagine how much fun that must be. And when I was on during the campaign, and I went to Texas to do a story on the Latino vote in Texas, and I did go to Austin, and I did go I drove into the parking lot at night. It was dark. I really couldn't see much, but I did go to see where the stadium's being built. It's kind of a nice location. By that I mean it's easy to get to. I wouldn't say you're probably going to do a lot of fun things around there after the game, maybe tailgating. But it is in kind of an interesting location in Austin. But I agree with you on the Minnesota Stadium. It's tremendous. It's really cool.
They just all look so. It's just they all look so good. So God willing, whoever you think is up there pulling the strings, however you see that, he, she, it, however it works. Hope that somebody pulls the strings and we're able to get back out there. Go to games, because games with people in them is a lot more fun. I've seen empty stadiums with soccer being played, and it was cool for about the first 15 minutes, and then it got boring. So having the fans there is so important to soccer. So hope that happens, and then hope that we can travel again, because between those two things, there are so many cool stadiums that you as a Galaxy fan are going to want to go watch the LA Galaxy beat up on some of these teams in. So I don't know.
Miami's also going to have a tremendous stadium. The one in Fort Lauderdale, the temporary stadium, is really nice. But I don't know. I liked the empty stadiums. I remember when you would yell down at Chicharito and some of the other players, and they were able to hear you.
I did not do that.
They'd look up into the press area, and the one guy that flipped you off, I forget who that was.
Yeah.
But I like that.
Yeah, it was probably you. No, I didn't do that. Just in case everybody was wondering, I didn't do that. I still would like to go to games as a member of the press.
But you could have.
You could. If you whisper loudly, they could probably hear you, unless they're playing the fake crowd noise. And I'm done with fake crowd noise, by the way, as well. All right, we've wandered, we've rambled, we've gone way off track, as is normally the case, and so that must mean our show is done. So, Kevin, anything else? You good?
I've been done for a long time, as the listeners know. No.
Absolutely correct. All right, if you're looking for Mr. Kevin Baxter on Twitter, it's at KBaxter11. And please head on over to the LA Times, where Kevin does all the soccer reporting, covering U.S. men's national team, women's national team, soccer across the United States, and certainly in SoCal. Make sure you head to latimes.com. If you're looking for me on Twitter, it's at Guesman, JGUESMAN, and of course, at Galaxy Podcast. Head on over to cornerofthegalaxy.com. Our podcasts, our news, all that stuff is right there for you. All right, for Kevin the Panda Baxter, I'm Josh Pato Guesman. You've been listening to Corner of the Galaxy from the Box on cornerofthegalaxy.com.
You've been listening to the Corner of the Galaxy podcast on cornerofthegalaxy.com. You can follow the show on Twitter and Instagram at Galaxy Podcast. And be sure to check out and subscribe to iTunes, Stitcher, and Facebook by searching for Corner of the Galaxy. Fans, we thank you for listening, and we ask that you be kind and courteous to your neighbors as you leave the podcast. We thank you for joining us and look forward to seeing you again. Until then, I'm Michael Araujo, and on behalf of the entire Corner of the Galaxy crew, goodbye, everybody.